Have you ever stocked new fish and you experience them dying one after the other few days after stocking them? Or you have heard people complain about experiencing the death of their newly stocked fingerlings or fish? If you are one of them, in fact, I will let you understand what is happening and what is the cause of that and how to prevent that. Personally, it has happened to me several times. I'll share those experiences with you. But if you experience that and you are wondering, don't be panic. That is what we call new tank syndrome. Before I tell you details about new tank syndrome, let me share a few experiences with you. In fact, I have stocked dozens of fish to farmers and I've experienced few mortalities with a few days of stocking them. The first one I experienced was in Kasua. In fact, I was the one who installed the fish farm. Someone else did, but they stocked the fish and they experienced huge mortality. I was invited there, and at the end of the day, we were able to provide solution to that. The second time I experienced was that I installed a fish farm at Kintampo, stocked the fingerlings, went back to Tamale. In a few days' time, they experienced huge mortality. Thankfully, I was able to intervene with recommendations. I'll give you that recommendation at the end of the video, so please stay watching. Another experience which happened recently is a farm I installed in Kumasi. It was an older pond, right? And then after stocking the fingerlings, few days they also started dying, and at the same time we're able to provide remedy. This usually happens in new stock, a new pond or new tank or new RAS, and it is the system we call new tank syndrome. Now, what is new tank syndrome? New tank syndrome happens when a newly installed pond has not yet developed the beneficial bacteria that will convert the high ammonia or toxic substance in the pond into useful ones. If you want to get this clear, we have what we call nitrogen cycle in fish farming. The nitrogen cycle, the nitrogen cycle goes this way. Fish introduce high ammonia into fish pond, and the high ammonia comes from their feces, their respiration, and their feed. These things accumulate in the pond, increasing the high ammonia. And high ammonia is very toxic and harmful to fish. It poisons fish. Now, that high ammonia, when it is introduced, it is broken down by bacteria known as nitrosomonas. And that nitrosomonas will break that high ammonia into nitrite. And nitrite is also still harmful to the fish. Then another bacteria, also known as nitrobacter bacteria. So the nitrobacter bacteria also convert that nitrite to nitrate. And this one, it is no more toxic and it is good for the fish. Now, this biological reaction takes time to build, especially if you install new pond. Because it takes time to build, when you stock in the fish and the high ammonia is able to accumulate faster, and the bacteria that are going to convert them to this cycle that I just mentioned are not yet fully developed, then you stand the chances of losing your fish. And that is what we simply call nitrogen cycle. So now, when the high ammonia is now converted to nitrate. This can easily be now broken down or be removed by either filtration system or irrigation system or plants in terms of aquaponics or simple partial water change. But until that is established, it is very difficult to control the high ammonia and it builds gradually. Having known what new tank syndrome is and how natural cycle works, let's now look at signs of new tank syndrome. Now, how do you know that your fish is being experienced new tank syndrome? First and foremost, you have to remember that it happens in newly stocked pond or raft or system where these bacteria are not yet established to break it down to nitrate. And that when you stock them few days after the high ammonia or the ammonia has been accumulated through their feces, their respiration, and their waste from the leftover feed, first sign you see is that the fish will be gasping for oxygen. You will see them put their nose, most of them or majority of them, try to get oxygen from outside, meaning oxygen has been depleted from the pond. Now, another symptom is that they can get red or inflamed gills. You find their gills to be red. That's also indication that they are experiencing new tank syndrome. If you're not taking measures, you begin to see them dying one after the other, die one after the other, and the death or the mortality will be increasing until you have a way of dealing with them. Another sign is that you will see the water to be cloudy or milky. If you observe that, it is also one of the reasons or one of the causes of new tank syndrome. And also, if you have test kit and you test the water, you will find out that the ammonia and the nitrate level will be higher. These are signs of new tank syndrome. Now, have a look at the signs. Let's look at what causes this new tank syndrome or this symptom. What causes that? In fact, the first thing is stocking your fish, either fingerlings or whatever, immediately after filling in the water. Often, the water needs to be colonized in the pond. So once you introduce the water into it and you put in the fingerlings, I am not saying all the time when you do this, you are going to experience new tank syndrome. You are going to experience new tank syndrome. No. Often I do that. And sometimes, or most of the time, you don't experience it. But there are instances where you stock the fish immediately after feeding them water, you experience it. Remember, I told you earlier that leftover feed also causes new tank syndrome. So once you feed your fish more than they are required, and the leftover feed is decayed and decomposed in the pond, it introduces high ammonia, and that leads to the new tank syndrome. Another important thing is that if you don't have enough protection and aeration system installed in your farm, then you are also likely to experience that. And lastly, if you don't have seeding, no seeding of those bacteria, if you don't have seedings of those bacteria introduced in there, you are likely to experience that. When we come to solutions, I will explain this further. There are ways that you can introduce this bacteria inside before stocking the fish, and that can prevent them from dying or experiencing new tank syndrome. Let me share another experience with you. There was a farm I installed to my mentor, Raj Amar. He's in Tamale. He's an experienced fish farmer. He has been in the industry for over 12 years. Yes. So I just installed the pond and the rest for him. Obviously, he knew what to do. But something happened, and he told me what he did, what actually happened, and how he overcame that challenge. And I learned a lot from that, and I'll share that with you. And indeed, this new tank syndrome issue, I haven't learned it from him. When I was experiencing them, I didn't even know that is what it was called until I had that interaction and experience with him. So when we stock, I installed the pond and I went because he needed grown-up fish. He didn't want even jumbo. So the fish even stocked, they were post jumbo catfish. He introduced them into the pond. They were quite okay. But few days time, they started dying. He tested his water quality and the ammonia was very high. Despite this aquaculture system working perfectly. He didn't believe that. He collected sample of the water and went to Water Research Institute. They tested it and they confirmed that the ammonia was actually higher and the fish was dying. He invited one of our doctors who is well experienced in aquaculture. He came and checked it and he told him that he should change the water. So after draining up the water, they used bitter leaves in the pond. Later added the water and henceforth, and then thenceforth, we didn't have any mortality again. And what he experienced was new tank syndrome. Now, there's a takeaway here. And the takeaway is that, and as Alach rightly put it to me, if you stock bigger fish in a tank, or if you stock more fish in a tank for the beginning, they produce waste, high waste immediately. And because the bacteria are not yet developed enough to break down high ammonia into nitrate that is good for the fish, you are likely to face new tank syndrome. So the way forward is that, and that brings us to prevention measures. First and foremost, stock less fish and increase the number as you go. For instance, this fish pond, let's assume, is going to house 1,000 fingerlings. Now, if it is going to house 1,000 fishes or fingerlings, instead of stocking 1,000 at once, if it is the first time that you're stocking the pond, stock something like 500 or 300. Allow them, allow the bacteria, the beneficial bacteria to develop, and then later you bring the remaining fish, and you will not experience new tank syndrome. Apart from this that I've mentioned, you can also stock fingerlings instead of jumbo or juvenile or grown-up fish, because at that stage, if they're still smaller, they produce less waste and less ammonia for that matter. So by the time the ammonia will be accumulated to affect them, the beneficial bacteria might have developed to break it down. But if you stock jumbo or grown-up fish and they produce the waste or the ammonia quickly, when the bacteria is not yet developed, then you also likely to experience new tank syndrome. I hope I'm making sense. Often, we always love to begin with jumbo or post fingerlings or juveniles that we say they are big, they are strong, and they grow faster. But this is also the reality of them in other aspects. Before I continue, if you're not subscribed to this channel, please all I do want from you is hit the subscription button, share, comment. Let me know your thought about that. Have you ever experienced new tank syndrome? If you do, let me know. We are seeing the prevention measures after stocking them. Also feed them less. As I mentioned earlier, leftover feed is always dangerous. So when you stock them first, and even as they are stressed and they don't eat much, please just give them light feed. Not much, just small, just to sustain them and allow those bacteria to develop. But if you give them more and they don't consume, or they consume and vomit it, and it increases the ammonia, they're also likely to face high tank, face new tank syndrome. What you also do is that increase filtration and aeration system so that it will be breaking down these harmful chemicals before they harm your fish. Also, always test your water regularly. If you have the test kit, when you notice the the ammonia level is increasing, then you try to provide solution, which we are yet to discuss. And also make sure that if you experience, or if you start to begin, if you begin to experience new tank syndrome or your fish dying, take these following measures. First and foremost, try to do partial change. If the ammonia is high, or you begin to see your fish gasping for oxygen, or to see the signs that we have mentioned, or they are dying, then do partial change. Please don't do complete change, because if you do complete change, the little bacteria that develop, you have discarded them, or you have taken them out again, and you are going to begin another cycle, and you are going to experience another new tank syndrome. So do partial change. So drain 50% or even less water out and top it up. That way, you still keep the little bacteria that develop, and you have also changed the water parameter so that the ammonia level will go down. Do partial change. Please don't do complete change. And before you top up the water, if you're going to do the change, immediately you drain the water to the half or more than half, then I recommend you add bitter leaves. The previous experience that I had, the bitter leaves always save us. This is a gold mine to fish farmers, please. If you don't have it installed in your farm or planted in your farm, do so. Now, after you drain the water, grind bitter leaves, enough of it, add water, remove the fiber or the waste of the bitter leaves, and add it evenly across the pond. Leave the fish there to swim for at least 3 hours before you top up the water. But if the intensity of the tank syndrome is higher and the fish are dying, you can even don't top the water and keep on giving the bitter leaves for 3 consecutive days. And then you top up the water and you'll be fine. If you don't have bitter leaves, alternatively, you can use salt. Dissolve the salt in water and add it evenly in the pond before topping up the water, after draining the water. Or you can just throw the salt into the water. But most often when you do that, the salt settles on the bottom and it takes time to dissolve. But if you dissolve already and put it in, it works quicker than just putting the salt. But I prefer the bitter leaves, but the salt is also good alternative. Increase or put aeration or flotation if you don't have, and that can also help the bacteria to dissolve, to develop faster, and to break down your high ammonia, and you will. And what you also do when you begin to experience new tank syndrome is to either stop feeding the fish or reduce feeding them for 1 to 2 days. I always recommend stop feeding. We begin to experience new tank syndrome, and you're going to go through the treatment that I mentioned, the bitter leaves, the partial water chain, and whatever. Stop feeding the fish for about 48 hours or at least 24 hours, at most 48 hours before giving them feed. Someone will say, oh, Abdul Aziz, you are starving them and hunger will kill them again. Yes, you are starving them, but it is good for them because remember, the feed alone is also increasing ammonia, and they are already suffering from high ammonia. So feeding them, increasing ammonia, we are risking them to die more. And what you have to notice is that fish can survive in water if the water quality is good for them or for the fish. They can survive in the water for a month without feed. Believe me, I've seen that. Yes, without feed. But if the water quality is not good and you give them millions of feed, they will not take it and it will rather kill them. So starving them to treat them is different. Because even at that time, we're not talking about their growth. We're talking about their survival. So if you don't give them feed, they won't grow, but they'll survive. After they survive and they are not healthy, you can give them enough feed for them to recover or to grow. If you have been inspired by this video and you found the video helpful, please subscribe. I also have fish farming course for catfish and tilapia that takes you through from planning, installing, stocking of fish, raising them, pond management, harvesting, marketing, everything you need to be successful in your fish farm. I have a course on that. It's a pre-recorded course uploaded on Gumroad. The link in the description. Check it out, sign out, and you thank me later. If you observe in the presentation, I keep mentioning filtration, I keep mentioning aeration. These are essential tools that in this modern era, this technological era, this innovative way of farming, if you don't have that, you will not enjoy your farm. If you want it, we can set it up for you in your farm. And if you also want to learn it yourself, we have DIY, that is do it yourself. We have a complete course that guides you, that teach you how to build your own flotation and aeration system and install it in your farm. That's the aquaculture system. If you do that, if you enroll in the course, learn it, you get the knowledge forever. The link to it is in the description. Check it out. And the good news is that we give 30% discount to the first subscribers. And indeed, the subscription or the discount is all coming to that end because people are buying. So they will soon use up all the discount and you have to buy at the full price. Check it out in the description. Get the discount before it expires. And thank you so much for watching. My name once again is Abdulaziz Issa. I have a degree, a bachelor degree in development education, but I'm a fish farmer. I have my own farm. I'm a fish farmer. I give fish farming services to people, and I also teach you online in this channel. Subscribe, share, comment. Watch out my next video in ice cream, and I'll see you there. Bye bye.